Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us today here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, the financial advisors and the father-son team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find out more about them, the entire team, set up a time to speak with them, have that complimentary conversation, whether it's a second opinion, first opinion, you want to start building that retirement roadmap. The website is welcomehomefp.com. You can also give a call, 804-635-3550, if you have questions about things we want to talk about that we talk about today on the show. You just want to let more insight, find out if you can, in fact, not just aspire to retire, but actually retire. That's the process. 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined, as I am every show, with Ralph and Tim Short. Gentlemen, good to see you again. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners here. You know, often on the show here, we will mention names of big investment firms like BlackRock, Goldman Sachs. Another one is Bridgewater, and its CEO was talking recently about picking investments, kind of what they do. He said that they have 400 people working on this day and night, and yet they still get it wrong about 40% of the time. Here's the thing. If you got on base 60% of the time, you'd be in the Hall of Fame. That's great. But if you're trying to pick stocks in retirement, can you afford to be wrong 40% of the time? Can you do retirement planning that isn't just a guessing game?
Well, I don't think most people, or even, getting it right 60% of the time, because everybody's looking for the next hot thing or, trying to time the market. And it's important to point out that, yes, it'd be nice to be in the Hall of Fame if we were on base 60% of the time. But on the same side is when we're talking about losing money, it's going to be completely different, right? So I think, as people try to anticipate what's next or what the future holds or pull out their crystal ball that everybody seems to have sometimes, it's important to really focus in on what you're trying to accomplish for your retirement. And it's not picking the next hot thing, right? And that's where a lot of people want to, I guess they're trying to seek that because, if you hit on the next hot stock, things are going to look really well. But if you pick that next hot stock and it ends up going the opposite way, then are you still going to be able to retire? And it's more important to focus in on the income when we're getting closer to retirement, and not the next hot stock or, trying to time the market per se. So, but we do find a lot of people get caught up in that. And I'll kind of blame it on COVID. When COVID hit in 2020, a lot of people were sitting at home, right? We're all quarantined and put into the corner.
Yeah.
And everybody turned into a day trader. But it was easy to do when we just had a quick little downturn of, 30 to 45 days, maybe a little bit longer, depending on what you're taking a look at. And, it was easy at that point in time to make money. But what's the most important thing is what your overall objectives are for your retirement. Most people can't afford that loss of 60% or 40% or getting it wrong the majority of the time. And I think studies show that, if you have a financial advisor behind you, you're more likely to succeed because there's a lot that an advisor will bring to the table. It's not necessarily just, picking and choosing investment strategies or overall investments. It's more about hand holding and, talking through during the tough conversations, because if you're in the market, let's face it, Chris, there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times.
Absolutely.
And I think most people appreciate the fact when the advisor reaches out during the bad times, when things are good, it's a quick and easy conversation and it's all smiles and giggles and high fives. So I think, once again, it's more important to take a look at your overall plan, not just that next hot stock.
And I would say for most people, when you're in retirement, you're going to look at least probably 20, maybe 30 years. So let's just take a look back for the last 15 years. It's been a great trend, great ride up. Do you really think that's always going to be that way? I've been in this business since 1985, and trust me, we've seen a lot of ups and downs from October Black Mondays through the 2008, the 2000 .com bubble and things like that. It all depends on, are you going to be able to withstand those ups and downs in your retirement? Probably not, but you also need to understand the last 15 years has been good to you. It's not whether you were good or bad at picking stocks. As long as you're in the stock market, you did pretty good. And I know a lot of people, when I talk to them about 2008, reliving some of that with some of the people that come in as retirees, I would tell them, I said, it probably took you 10 to 12 years to get back to being even from where you were in 2008 as far as your portfolio size. And some of them, particularly some of the bigger companies around here, they have a lot of bravado there and say, oh, no, I'm so good. It took me 5 or 6 years to get back to being even. And I will tell them real quick, I said, yeah, but you forgot about one thing. you forgot that you were adding money into your 401k, and so was your company. And at the same time, the market was going up. That's a perfect storm to get you back to being even a little bit more. And usually they'll say, oh, okay, that's right. I never thought about it that way. But that's, some of the things that you have to contend with, because you're going to have a lot longer retirement than you planned unless you have some health issues now. But whatever happens, and you listen to all the things that you hear in the newscast, things are completely different right now because everybody's worried about the tariffs. Everybody's worried about China. Everybody's worried about AI and elections and this and that and everything else. Well, guess what? You're still going to have those same kind of issues. They're probably going to be different in your retirement years, but you just got to be prepared to understand what is your goal. Your goal is to maintain the lifestyle that you've always dreamed of. It's not about outpacing the stock market or anything like that. It's to make sure your goals are met, whether it's through your lifestyle that you want to maintain or whether it's your legacy that you're planning for. It all depends on you, and you've got to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and whether you have an advisor, whether you're doing your own. I would say that if Bridgewater has 400 people trying to do what you're trying to do by yourself, I'd say I would bet on them first before I would bet on one individual, unless it maybe is Warren Buffett, but that's not anybody that I know of right now that can do that. So I would just say the biggest mistake is they develop overconfidence from the past 15 years because this is a long bull market. Even though it's had some ups and downs, they've been short-lived. So just be prepared. Understand you're going to have downs. Just be prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of people do develop that overconfidence. And I hate to relate this to my 16-year-old, but we've had this conversation about driving. He's a new driver. And it's like, look, you feel like we were all 16 once before, but you feel like you know all the answers, and you feel like, hey, now I know I've got my license, I've got the freedom. Well, once you let your guard down and you feel like you've got the overconfidence because now you're the expert driver, right? That's when you're going to get in the car accident. So that's why I think it's important, to have that second set of eyes. But kind of go back to the goals real quick. I hate to make a joke of this, but I don't know about you two gentlemen, but one of my goals is stop watching so many political ads. Good gracious.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, if I can help it, yeah.
Can't wait till November when it's all over with.
Yeah, exactly. It's all going to end come November, and it's not going to start the next day.
And the next cycle begins.
We've talked before about, there was a study, and I can't remember the exact who did it, but looking at investors who got in exactly when the market was at its lows, who put in at the wrong time when it was at its highs, and then people who just consistently did it, that dollar cost averaging. And it found that the person who did the dollar cost averaging, the consistency, was not that far off from the person who got it right every single time. Consistency is pretty critical when it comes to a lot of things, especially when it comes to income in retirement. You want that consistent income, and you want, consistent performance overall when it comes to the market. Now, is that possible? Not all the time, obviously, because as we said, there are ups and downs and things like that. But if you know that the market will fluctuate, and that, you develop a strategy where you're not necessarily impacted by the ups and downs of the market for the income that you're bringing in, especially in retirement, because you're going to need that consistent income to pay those consistent bills and those consistent utilities. So being agnostic about the market, not being, married to a certain stock or a certain performance, not trying to chase those highs, those once in a lifetime stocks. Because here's the thing, as we said, a 600 batting average will get you into the Hall of Fame. A 400 batting average will probably get you to the Hall of Fame. You don't want that when it comes to your stocks. Home runs are great. They're phenomenal. Singles and doubles, consistency, again, is what gets you to the championship. So if you want a more consistent plan, if you haven't figured out how to turn your retirement investments, your retirement accounts into an actual retirement plan that includes an income plan, now's a good time to have that conversation. Pick up the phone, give a call, schedule that complimentary appointment with Ralph and Tim Short, start developing that retirement roadmap, figure out where you are right now and how to get to where you want to be in retirement. Complimentary. Go to welcomehomefp.com or give a call, 804-635-3550. Once again, that's 804-635-3550. Let's talk about the American dream for a second here, because I think it's changed a little bit I personally, I don't want the white picket fence, because painting in general is not my thing, but painting fences especially, I don't want to do it. But we all strive to obtain some modicum of the American dream. It has gotten more expensive, though, when you tally all the numbers out over a lifetime. Gentlemen, get this. A new report by Investopedia found that it comes out over a lifetime, not just in retirement, over $5 million. The breakdown is roughly home ownership, about $1 million, raising 2 kids and paying for college, $875,000, owning new cars over your lifetime, about $1 million, retirement in and of itself, $1.6 million. So with retirement making up about a third of that American dream, how often should people revisit their plan, their retirement savings and spending, to make sure that it aligns with the new realities financially in retirement?
Well, I think this study kind of points out the fact that, the prices have escalated quite a bit, right? If we took the study 10 years ago, you wouldn't see these numbers. I think the last 5 years have really brought to light the fact that each year it's going to get drastically a little bit more expensive. And I think inflation is not the end all be all, but that's definitely something that you're going to have to pay attention to. So I think as you're approaching retirement, we talk about this quite a bit, is, if we're 5 years away, let's look at the last 5 years, right? I mean, I don't know the stats, but just take a look at insurance. Take a look at insurance and take a look at food prices. They are dramatically higher than where they were 5 years ago. Do we ever feel like they're going to reset? Probably not. So you've got to make sure within 5, maybe even 10 years, you start taking a look at what you're currently doing. We talked about the overconfidence. You don't want to have the overconfidence or, kind of turn a blind eye to what's going on, because, some studies will say you need $1 million. Some people will say you need $2 million. This is showing $5 million, right, over the lifetime. Well, I can tell you the cost of tuition right now and the cost of raising 2 kids. I've got 3, but I can tell you right now that $876,000 over their lifetime is probably lowballing. So it's one of those things we've talked about, especially, I hate bringing up COVID so much in this show, but a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of kids were moving back in, or a lot of grandkids, needed some additional resources. What if that happens, not necessarily COVID, but what if that happens to you, where your child has to move back in with you because they lost their job or they can't find a job? Or who knows, maybe you pay the $150,000 college tuition bill, and the next thing you know, your kid's moving back in with you because they can't find a job. So a lot of this is going to factor in. The one thing you don't want to do is, oh, guess what? I'm going to retire next Friday. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what I can change now.
Yeah, and I would say for most people, including me, if you had told me that I'm going to retire and I need $5 million, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. And it almost make you think, well, man, I don't think I'll ever be able to do what I thought about. But you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan on what you want. It's not, maybe you don't have any kids. Maybe you don't have any kids that want to go to college. So those costs shouldn't be included within your plan. So that's the key thing when we do our roadmap. It's always based on what it is that the person in front of me and Tim, what they're trying to do. What's their lifestyle? What's their expenses now? What are their dreams? What's their aspirations? What is their retirement going to look like? Maybe there's some people that's got health issues that may not be here for a few years. Maybe there's somebody that's got longevity and they've got all of a sudden, they're probably going to live to be 110 years old. We've got clients as parents that are 110. So those are all things that makes our roadmap process very important and very timely for most people when they're fixing to retire. Do we have all the answers? No, but if you don't sit down with somebody to go through a situation like this, you'll never know what it's going to look like for you. And these type of numbers are scary. I don't care who you are. You may be Warren Buffett when he started out, and all of a sudden you're looking at $1.6 million, and he's like, my goodness, I don't have 2 nickels to rub together to pay my mortgage, and now you're talking to me about $1.6 million needing for retirement. Who in their right mind in their age 20 or 25 thinks that they'll ever be able to have it just through working? Maybe they'll get an inheritance. That might be something. But you have to factor in all those situations, and it is scary when you sit there and look at these kind of numbers, but you've got to be able to have a fiduciary to let you understand how it is that you can accomplish your goals. And, it's not one of those things that a lot of people ever thought about they needed to have a conversation with. Sometimes, like Tim and I have talked about, we're almost financial psychologists. I had a gentleman just the other day said, "Where's your couch?" Because based on what you're telling me, that's what I need is some mental health issues here that I've got to deal with. And that's a lot truer than you might think, because most people aren't trained in the financial management world, and nobody's ever talked to them about what is your purpose in retirement. How are you going to get that next level that you want to get to and be satisfied in your retirement? It's not all about the money, people. It's about what you're trying to accomplish, and you got to have the goals. You're the ones that set the goals, not me or Tim or not Chris.
It is true. Take a step back and, do what you can. A great step is starting to develop a plan or refine that plan, like the retirement roadmap, which, again, everyone starts at a different location. The destination at the end of the day is going to be a little bit different. That is why you get a customized approach with that retirement roadmap at Welcome Home Financial Partners. Ralph and Tim, they wear a lot of hats in the office. Sometimes it is that of a psychologist. Sometimes it's that of a marriage counselor. But first and foremost, they are financial advisors. They are fiduciaries looking out for your best interest when they develop these plans, develop these roadmaps. And that is going to obviously be different for other people. There's no cookie cutter approach. There's no one size fits all approach. You should be wary of anyone who is offering that. That's not what you get at Welcome Home Financial Partners. So if you hear these numbers and you think, I am never going to be able to retire, find out. Take a step back and take a breath. Give a call, 804-635-3550. You may find out it's not as insurmountable as you think. You may be in better shape than you thought. You may find out there's work that needs to be done, but then you'll know what the steps are. So again, complimentary conversation, a great way to get started for those of us who do, in fact, aspire to retire. 804-635-3550 or online, welcomehomefp.com. Everyone here at the table right now is a parent. Some of us parents to other people at the table, so this could be interesting. There was a recent survey that found that about half of parents provide financial assistance to their adult kids. My son is 9. You said you've got a 16-year-old, so it's a little bit different there. But apparently it doesn't just stop there providing that assistance. Listen to what the I've Had It podcast also uncovered recently.
Nearly half of Gen Zers have mom regularly talk to their boss.
Shut up. No.
79% say their parents communicate with their manager.
This cannot be real.
73% get help from their parents completing work assignments. 57% bring their parents to work.
If this is what is happening in real time, we have bigger problems than I even thought.
I have failed as a parent.
I remember there was a time where my dad wanted to talk to one of my college professors, and I said, if you do, I have to transfer. I can't do this. Please don't. But, there are people who do everything that they can for their kids, sometimes at the expense of themselves. Have you seen people risk their own retirement by giving regular financial support to their children? What do you recommend as like a safe boundary for this kind of assistance?
Oh, sure. We absolutely see it. Now, I will have to say this next comment with the caveat of, this is a family business. But yes, I am one of those that have my mother talk to my boss on a regular basis.
Fair.
So,
that's fair. Yeah.
But, it's a little bit different. I don't think that's what the criteria that they had for that little study. But yeah, I think, and I know Dad will probably have a really good story for this, but, talking about college loans, we've seen some people that have jeopardized their entire retirement just because they're on the hook for those. And now the kids don't want to, chip in or contribute to it. But, there's a lot of things that go into that. There's a lot of things that we take a look at as far as like gifting strategies or inheritance and that type of thing. But there are quite a few folks out there that don't necessarily, they're not looking out for their own well-being. They're taking a look at their kids' well-being, which is great, right? You're supposed to love and care for your children, but on the same side is you also have to take care of yourself too.
Right.
And if you're not taking care of yourself, then how are you going to take care of them? So I think there's a lot of people that really need to kind of take that advice, because we see quite a bit that, in not just, the giving or getting into retirement and still providing for, but also when you're younger and you're investing and you started out, when you're having your family, there's a lot of spouses that would have stayed home and missed out on some working years and missed out on some investment opportunity there. So, granted, everybody's got their own little thing, but you need to make sure that you start taking care of yourself.
I would say that people need to understand in this generation that we're living through, there's a big difference between a handout and a hand up. There's nothing wrong with trying to help somebody do better for themselves, but there's a big difference in just giving them something because that's what they want. What are you teaching these people? Are you teaching them values that, work, hard work, effort means something? I mean, I remember years ago, in fact, probably about 30 years ago, when I was treasurer of a chamber of commerce in the school system where I was living, called up and wanted some mentors to come over and talk to the high school business class. And I said, well, that's fine. We can get that done. But what do you want us to talk about? And they said, soft skills. And the old country boy like me said, what are soft skills? I've never heard of that. So they explained to me that we needed to teach the high school kids to show up for work on time, be prepared, be properly dressed. And I just kind of looked at him and I'm like, where's their parents? Don't tell me you're trying to teach them that in high school. Isn't that their parents' job? And he goes, Mr. Short, you don't have an understanding of what we have to deal with then, do you? I said, apparently not, because I was taught that you get up early. If you're 10 minutes late for an appointment, or 10 minutes early for an appointment, you're late. So that's the kind of education that I got. So the other thing I would say is this, and Tim, you're right. I do have an example from one of our clients when we were sitting down during our roadmap. She came in 60 some years old. She's fairly successful. She was an RN, and we were sitting there chatting, and this was right after COVID. And she goes, when we were doing our roadmap, presenting it to her, she goes, well, where's the college loan payment? I'm like, well, you didn't tell me anything about it because all these numbers are based on what you've given me. And she said, well, I don't have to pay for it now, but what do you mean? And she goes, well, they said that I didn't have to pay for it right now because I said, yeah, they kind of postponed it for a little while because of COVID and all that kind of stuff, but you still owe it. Oh, well, no, I don't. I don't have to pay for it now. I said, all right, humor me. Just how much do you owe? She goes, about $450,000. And I looked at her and I said, you're 60 some years old and you want to retire? And I said, do not tell me that's just your student loan. She, oh, no, I got 3 kids and that's student loans. And one of them was an engineer making 3 times as much money as she was as an RN. And she goes that, this is a payment for him. And I'm like, have you ever discussed with him about taking that payment over so you can retire? Because based on the numbers that we were looking at, she's not able to retire. Her retirement income plan was in the red. And she goes, yes, I have. And I'm like, okay, well, what did he say? And he said, well, Mom, you signed the papers, not me. And I casually asked her, I said, if I'd have said that to my parents, I don't know how many teeth I would have left in my mouth. But, those are things that you need to consider when you're taking a look at retirement. Is that going to hurt you to come up with an extra $2,000 a month payment for your college education for your kids? Probably so. So it always is good to help somebody, but without hindering yourself.
At the same time, also making sure that what you're doing to what you think is helping them doesn't hurt them in the long run. If they become accustomed to saying, oh, it'll always be there, I can always have that fallback. It's not necessarily the case. Part of being a fiduciary, like Ralph and Tim, acting in the client's best interest means that sometimes they will tell you things that you may not want to hear, but you probably know, but you need to hear it. One of those things, if you are jeopardizing your own retirement at the expense of helping your kids for whatever reason, they'll let you know that. They'll show you. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your decision to make. But again, acting in your best interest. I can't help but remember or think of the safety briefings, the airline pre-check when they give all the safety instructions. How you got the vest in order. But the oxygen masks, they always say make sure you put the mask on yourself before you take care of other people. Same sort of thing when it comes to your retirement. Yes, we all want to do great things for our kids and do everything we can, but we have to take care of ourselves first. Otherwise, it becomes a bigger problem down the line. It's all part of that planning process, and it goes into legacy and estate. But that retirement roadmap, again, complimentary. Sometimes it means having some hard conversations, but it begins with a phone call, 804-635-3550, or go to the website, and that's at welcomehomefp.com. Let's lighten it up before we wrap up the show and talk about the NFL. We're not going to talk about this season, to be fair. But if you follow the NFL, you may remember the name Robert Griffin III, especially if you're, here in the Richmond area. He was a quarterback for Washington, and in 2012, he signed a rookie contract for $21 million. RG3 tells the Mighty podcast it was his first real money moment.
So when I was signed in the NFL, signing bonus was $14 million. So I signed it. They tell me, hey, it's going to get paid out over 6 months or whatever. So then when I get the full signing bonus, I only got, and I say only respectfully, $6.9 million. So less than 50%. I called my agent immediately. I'm distraught. And I'm like, oh my God, they took all the money out. Where is the $14 million? And he's like, Rob, it's taxes. You didn't tell me that they were going to take half of the signing bonus.
It was over half for the record. But, people may be in for the same surprise when it comes to retirement. When you think about your Social Security check, 401k, and the withdrawal from the investment accounts, those taxes will come in. Have you had any new clients come in for help because of a surprise tax bill? How did you help them? But before we do that, Tim, I know you've got thoughts on RG3.
You read my mind over there, Chris. I see.
I saw it.
Yeah. So, look, 2012 was an electrifying year for us. I guess back then it was the Washington Redskin fans. And, we hadn't seen an athlete like that playing quarterback in quite some time. But the good old Fred Smoot used to play quarterback for us too.
Yeah.
Used to call him Brittle Bob Three Sticks, which I thought was funny because, of course, Bob for Robert, and then he had the 3 at the end, so it had the 3 sticks. But that was always very comical when I heard Smooty say that. But yeah, we see quite a bit of people that don't necessarily factor taxes in to their retirement plan, and that can be devastating. You heard him right there. And granted, some of us don't work with a $14 million signing bonus, right? I know when I started working, I didn't get a $14 million signing bonus.
You got that one right.
but on the same side, it's like, that's a tough pill to swallow, right? So if you're going to work with less than half of what you thought you were getting, your plan's probably not going to work out. So I think, he brings up a really good point. And I wish, his career could have been more remembered, not just for laying down face down on FedEx Field turf, which I will give him a little bit of respect here. That was not his fault. Between FedEx Field being crap and Mike Shanahan's decision, maybe his career had been prolonged a little bit longer.
Well, I would say that most people aren't going to have that kind of signing bonus. And the people that we deal with on Main Street, they may have a business, though, that they want to sell.
Right.
The same situation that I talk to a lot of people with about how do you defer that capital gains? Because let's say that you're going to receive half of what you thought you were going to, and as most business owners do, think that that's going to be their retirement accounts because they didn't put a lot of money within their retirement because they was always plugging money back into the business to make it successful. And now all of a sudden, you got half of what you thought you were going to get. Same situation. It may not be the same numbers, but guess what? Recently had a client that called in, and they are going to sell a business for about $7.5 million. Now, guess what? They're only going to get about, $3.5 million if they continue the path that they are. So we have to design a program to help them prolong, delay those capital gains taxation and make it better for them. So those are all things that we do help people on Main Street.
When RG3 signed his rookie contract, he was 21 or 22 from what I recall. So it probably was his first time really considering taxes, especially for that caliber. How many 21-year-olds get that? Well, in the NFL, probably a good bit, actually. But when it comes to retirees, they also don't think about those taxes. Oh, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Possibly. We don't know what those brackets will be. But have you factored in Social Security taxation? Have you factored in RMDs down the line where the government is making you take that money whether or not you need it? Because guess what? They want you to be successful because that means that they get a cut of that. They want you to be successful so that they can be successful. Well, they can get money at least. But taking into account taxation is critical when it comes to retirement. And it is part of that retirement roadmap process because we talked about the markets earlier and the performance and the fluctuation that happens in the market. But once you have to write that check to Uncle Sam, once they're making you saying this is what you owe us, that money's not coming back. So it is as important as anything else when it comes to retirement. And it's all there in that retirement roadmap that Ralph and Tim, that the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners puts together for clients and maintains for clients each and every single day. So if you want to get started, if you want a set of eyes on your plan, if you haven't taken into account, the risk that you may be taking in retirement or the taxes you could be paying in retirement, give a call. Schedule that complimentary time to begin that retirement roadmap process. 804-635-3550. Or you can go online, find out more about Ralph and Tim, set up a time to speak with them there as well. And that is at welcomehomefp.com. As always, I want to thank you for joining us, spending part of the day right here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. I hope you have a great day ahead of you. Gentlemen, always appreciate the time. Hope you have a great day. As we wrap up, I'm going to leave you with the final word.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And we appreciate you and your time as well today. Obviously, we had a little bit of fun with football, and hopefully this weekend and football will be better than last weekend.
Right.
But when it comes to retirement, we've talked about quite a bit of things every week and every TV show and what have you. I think it's really important for everybody to get a second set of eyes on what they're currently doing, whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or maybe you already have an advisor, just to kind of see, are we chasing that magic number, or are we just looking for the overall income? So give us a call. We'd love to bring you in and have the opportunity to help you out in any way that we can. And once again, we appreciate y'all's time. Thank you for listening, and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.